Hey guys, I'm Ryan. I currently live in Ecuador, at least for a couple more weeks. Sarah and I are currently in the process of moving to Cambodia. This is going to be the 5th country that we've lived in together. We've moved countries 6 times. Sarah's moved countries, I think, 9 times at this point. So we're pretty comfortable with the process, and I want to share it with you. I'm going to tell you about the headaches, some of the costs involved, hidden costs that you don't think about, what to expect, some tips, plus all that in the time of COVID-19. Which is obviously a new thing for us, but we're figuring it all out. So let's get into it. Let's break it down. Let's talk about moving to a new country.
People like this. Y'all don't know people like this. Y'all don't know people like this. Y'all don't know people like this.
Normally, leaving a country is far less complicated than entering a country. You sell your stuff, transfer some money out, close your bank account up, jump on a flight, you're gone. But in Ecuador, things are a bit more complicated, and to give you an example of this, I present to you the tale of Ryan trying to sell his motorcycle. To make it easier on myself, I decided to sell it through the dealership that I bought it through, and they charge like $50, and they basically take care of everything. I just bring the motorcycle there, and that's it really, and then they call me when they find a buyer. They found a buyer, so the buyer and I went to the notary to get the paperwork done. Turns out my vehicle registration had my old passport number on it. I got a new passport a few months ago and I didn't think to update the vehicle registration with the new passport number. So even though I still had my old passport and I could pretty much prove that the motorcycle did belong to me, they still required me to change the number in the system to my new passport. So I had to go to the transit agency, which I knew was going to be a headache because anything like that is always a huge headache in Ecuador. I was given an address of an office I had to go to make the change. I went to that address.
No.
They said that they didn't do it there. They gave me another address. I went there.
No.
They said they didn't do it there. I went to another address, and at that place I had to wait in line for 4 hours, the whole time hoping that I wasn't at the wrong place again. But I finally got through. 4 hours later, went up to the lady. She went, okay, you're good. And she said to go to a different place in 24 hours and I'd be able to pick up my new document. So the next day I go to that place and they say that they don't do that.
No.
But I can get it sent to me in 24 hours by filling out an online form. So I do that, I wait another 24 hours, no document. About a week later, they send me an email saying that they can't give me the document until I pay a fee that I owe. They have instructions on how to do that. I go into the computer, go to do exactly what they say, and it says I don't have any fees to pay. I never did get that document, but we decided that because it was changed in the computer, maybe it would be okay to go back to the notary with the buyer and get it changed over. When we got there, we were told it should be fine as long as the computer was updated. But in Ecuador, in order to sell a vehicle, if you're married, you need both partners to sign off on it. On the Ecuadorian ID, it has your marital status. My passport doesn't have my marital status, so the notary wouldn't do the paperwork unless I could prove that I wasn't married or prove that I was married and have my partner come in and sign off on it. Eventually, I was able to figure it all out, but it was like 3 days of my time and like 6 different trips to offices around the city. To tell you the truth, it's pretty typical in Ecuador. I've talked to other people who've been through the same thing, and you have to keep in mind that I was working with a motorcycle dealership, a business whose whole job is to sell motorcycles. They were helping me the whole way and it still didn't go smoothly. Shut the fuck up with the dogs. If I compare this to Vietnam when I sold the motorcycle, it was literally, here's the money, here's the document, bang, dunsies. So leaving a country very much depends on the country you're in. In Ecuador, we have to close our bank account up. In China, we didn't bother closing our bank account, we just took all the money out and left it open. Usually when we leave a country, Sarah takes all the money that she made in the country and transfers it to a Canadian bank account. In Ecuador, anything over $1,000 you have to pay a 5% fee on. Basically, the government takes 5% of it. Oh, f***ing dogs, shut the f*** up. What is wrong with you? Why aren't people kicking their dogs more? If your dog barks, you don't want it to bark, you kick it. In both China and Vietnam, we just transferred our money out. There was a fee from the bank, there was an exchange rate fee, but it wasn't too much. In Ecuador, we still got those same fees plus the 5% charge. So lost a lot more money transferring our money out of Ecuador than both China and Vietnam. However, in Ecuador, we were able to transfer our money out online, just from home, through the Ecuadorian bank's website. In China, we actually had to open up a different account with another bank because only certain banks will do international transfers. I was actually going to try and do a running total of all the money that we're losing on this move, but it kind of depressed me, so I decided not to do it. But I'll go over some of the figures. I think the biggest money loss when it comes to moving to a new country, for us at least, has been moving out of the house or apartment that we were in. In Canada, leases are usually a year. Once the year's up, you go month to month, and then when you're ready to leave, you give them 2 months notice, and they'll either take the money out of your deposit for the last 2 months, or if you just paid 1 month's deposit, then just the last month. But in my experience, most countries in the world, they don't do it like that. In Vietnam, we actually had to commit to a full 2 years. We had a 2 months deposit up front, and there was a 2-month deposit penalty if we didn't stay the full 2 years. Sarah's contract there was for 2 years, so we figured we're going to stay there, but we actually bounced out of the country 2 months shorter than that because the school year was done and we had to move on to our next location, and we wanted to do some traveling and stuff. So we ended up eating 2 months rent there, and that was about $1,000. In Ecuador, we signed a 1-year lease, and we're actually leaving about 2 months early minus 5 days. So we kind of have two options. We can pay the penalty for breaking the lease, which is a month and a half's rent, or we can just stay that extra 5 days and then just leave, and that would be essentially paying for the last 2 months' rent. So to save a half month's rent, we're leaving at the end of the month, and we're going to get an Airbnb for the 5 extra days, even though we kind of have paid for the apartment. It's a bit complicated, but essentially we're losing a month and a half's rent for this one too. I think over the past 7 years of living internationally, we've paid about $2,275 in fees for breaking our lease, which is just something that we've come to expect, and you just kind of have to roll with it, I guess. So that's just for leaving the country. There's even more paperwork for entering into a new country. Sarah gets a business visa, which is sponsored by the company that she's working for, and I get a dependent visa, which is far easier to get than her business visa. I essentially just need to prove that we're either married or common law, depending on the country. Some countries don't recognize common law, and I just kind of piggyback off of her business visa. In some countries, you have to get the marriage certificate translated and notarized, authenticated, some paperwork involved there, and some fees as well. But Cambodia, it was pretty straightforward. But for Sarah, she needs things like police checks for all the countries that she's worked in. Usually this isn't too difficult. You go to some place, give them your ID, they put you in the system, you come back in a couple of days and they have it ready for you. In Ecuador, it's right now impossible. The building that does it actually has a sign out front saying we're not doing this for foreigners. For whatever reason, we can't get it done here. And it's a big problem because once Sarah leaves Ecuador, if she wants that police check, she has to come back to Ecuador to get it because she's not in the system, she's never been arrested, she needs to be fingerprinted and just basically be put in the computer system. I'm not really sure what she can do about that, but hot tip for you, hot tips. If you live in a country and you're leaving, get a police check at that country. Make your life easy, because even if your next place doesn't need it, for example, we didn't need a police check from Vietnam when we moved to China, but now the school that Sarah's going to, they require a police check from Vietnam. And for Sarah to get that now, it cost her like $300. She had to go through a service who could do it. Some places you can't do it, you have to do it in person. But in Vietnam, we were able to get somebody else to do it for us. And they got the document, they sent it to the school in Cambodia. It says that it was delivered, but the person who was supposed to get it said they never got it. So there's a whole headache there as well. We're still waiting on that. We're not sure what we're going to do about that. Lots of headaches when it comes to paperwork, especially considering that these countries don't speak the same language, so they often need it translated and authenticated and all this stuff. Not always, but some countries do. Cambodia is actually pretty good. They accept English documents, so it's been a little bit easier getting into Cambodia than it was, say, Vietnam. So we had to fill out a visa application form. We had to take all the documents the school gave us. We had to submit a negative COVID test for some reason, and also the visa fee and our passports themselves. Stick them all in an envelope and mail them to a Cambodian consulate or embassy. There are 0 Cambodian consulates or embassies in South America. We decided to go with the Canadian consulate, mainly because the consulate wasn't able to mail our stuff back to us. they can't mail internationally. So I have my mom in Canada, so she helped us out. We sent her everything, and then she sent it to the consulate. They sent it back to her. She sent it back to us. And because it included our passports, we had to use registered mail, which costs a lot. We needed our passports back as soon as possible because we had to do other things like sell my motorcycle and close Sarah's bank account. And of course, because of the pandemic, the mail system's a lot slower. We did a 2-day priority from my mom's house to the consulate in Toronto, which is only about a 2-hour drive, but that ended up taking like a week. In total, including all the mailing we had to do and the fee for the visa, it cost us about $250 each for the Cambodian visa. There's the helicopter with a water bucket hanging from it, doing some forest firefighting. I don't know what's on fire, I can't see smoke, but it's coming down in the valley. Moving internationally also requires a health check a lot of times. Usually that's done in the country when you arrive, but for Cambodia we needed to do one ahead of time. I think it was because the school is providing us with insurance and they want it for that. But it meant going and just getting a physical and also some boosters for vaccines. There was a list of vaccines that we needed. I think I had most of them, but I just needed a couple extras. So all that stuff had to be done ahead of time, and we needed to send that proof off. I think that's it as far as paperwork goes. Again, it depends on which country you're going to. Some are easy, some are hard. Better put this hat back on, just in case people get confused and don't recognize me. Okay, let's talk about packing. Packing, well, let's just say I want to shoot myself in the face right now. How you doing in here?
We're doing okay, actually.
We're doing actually pretty good.
You gotta make space for the important things in life, you know?
We're trying to get everything into 4 bags. 1, 2, 3, 4. Maximum of 92 kilograms plus hand luggage.
I mean, if you have a baby, you get like so much extra space. It's really not fair. But maybe we should think about
Having a baby just for that. So a lot of important decisions to make. Do you want to bring the Monopoly? It's like Ho Chi Minh Saigon Monopoly, which was a gift from friends, and we quite like it, so we kind of want to keep it. Also things like our beautiful cast iron pan. I love this pan. It's seasoned perfectly. I cook an egg in it, no problem, no stickage, but it also weighs a ton, so it's probably gonna have to stay. On the plus side, it really helps you kind of fine-tune what you need in life. I have clothes that I'm throwing out, clothes with holes in them, clothes that I haven't worn in 2 years. It forces you to go through your stuff and just decide what's important and leave behind the stuff that's not. In Ecuador, we were lucky enough to get an apartment that was very fully furnished. There was everything we needed, down to whatever this thing is.
egg slicer.
Egg slicer, is that what it is? Eggs are so hard to slice when you...
There was an Airbnb that had a negative comment that I read the other day. It said it didn't come with an egg slicer or something.
No way. In China, we lived in an apartment that was provided by the school. It was like a teacher apartment. Wasn't furnished that well. We had to buy a lot of stuff. In China, it's cheap to buy stuff, but then at the end of the contract, when we decided to move, we had to sell everything. And you know, it's last minute sales. We're trying to get rid of everything, so prices are getting slashed. People are negotiating hard like they do in China. So we obviously didn't make back near as much money as we could have. And that's a huge money loss when you're moving to a new country, having to sell stuff. Luckily for us in Ecuador, we haven't had to sell too much. All right, now let's just do a quick tour of the bathroom.
No.
Most of the stuff that comes with us are things like clothes, electronics, and a few keepsakes, just things that we don't want to throw out. They have sentimental value. You also have to consider where you're moving. Going to Cambodia, we're not going to need heavy sweaters like this llama wool sweater. I'll probably keep this one because it has sentimental value, but a lot of big heavy sweaters that I have here, I'm not going to need. I'll throw those out or donate them to charity.
What about that Chinese apron?
Oh, my Chinese apron, I forgot about that.
You gotta bring that.
I want
It's got
that.
food stains on it. And wash that off.
So you weigh it up, you go, this is cool. I'm not going to be able to get it anywhere else. Actually, you probably can find it somewhere and put on pen.
Mass-produce them
Yeah.
in Cambodia.
But, you know, I like it, and it doesn't weigh much. It's a keeper. You also want to consider how much things cost in the country you're going to. In Ecuador, things are really expensive, so we actually bought stuff before we left China. where things are cheaper. And Cambodia, lots of stuff is made there, a lot of clothing's made there, everything's pretty cheap there. They also have a good relationship with China, so we can probably get things for pretty cheap there. So that thing you can probably buy in Cambodia for super cheap. A little bit heavy. I should really just crunch the numbers and figure out how much each thing costs and then weigh it and figure out how much it is to buy in Cambodia. But that's a lot of work. I'm not going to do that. All right, it's moving day. And the place is looking spotless. You have to make sure it's spotless because in Ecuador, they will charge you for, basically the contract says everything has to be left the way it was when you moved in. And things like the couch. It was listed as new. I don't know how we're supposed to make the couch new again, but we did our best. Everything's looking good. And here is everything we own. Bam.
That's a lot. It's too much.
It is too much.
1, 2, 3, 4. I mean, there's too many bags. More bags than we're allowed to bring on the plane, so I don't know what's going on there.
All right, guys, here I am in beautiful Cambodia, Pichincha Mountain. Wait a second, this isn't Cambodia at all. I am still in Quito. We have had a rough week. So we were set to leave. We were all ready to go. I think we were about 4 days out and we got robbed. Robbed at gunpoint and Sarah's passport got stolen. Oh man. I'm gonna shoot a separate video telling you guys all about that experience. I just wanted to kind of end this video and basically say we're still working on it. A lot of hoops to jump through. Sarah's getting an emergency travel document so she can travel. She also needs to get a new Cambodian visa for it. So we have to basically stay in Ecuador for another 20 days or so to get all that stuff. Yeah, moving to a new country is not easy. Right now we're in an Airbnb in Quito and we're just trying to keep a low profile. It's been about a week and a half since we got robbed and it's been really difficult to get back into the whole feeling comfortable walking around Quito. Like you're walking along a sidewalk, you hear a noise, you're like, what's that? It was scary stuff. We're also worried about getting all these documents on time because this emergency travel document, you have to state every step of your journey, all the layovers, all the transits you have to do. And if any of those go wrong, if we don't get our Cambodian visa in time, we can't take that first flight out of Ecuador, then the emergency travel document has to be applied for again, and that's another 20 days or so. So, I don't know, we're supposed to have been in Cambodia by now. Supposed to have been in quarantine and Sarah's supposed to start her job in 2 weeks, but she's gonna have to start late and it's just been a nightmare. And it's not the best way to end our time in Ecuador, that's for sure. I'm gonna follow up this video with a second part about the travel, the journey there, which is gonna be crazy. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 or 5 flights to get to Cambodia from here. So stay tuned for that, and also stay tuned for a video about the robbery. I'll tell you guys exactly what happened. Somebody from the bank informed the robbers that we're leaving the bank with a bunch of money, and they were right there, and I got hit in the ear, punctured a hole through my ear. Yeah, it was awful. So you can stay tuned for that video as well. But for now, I'm just gonna sign off and I'm gonna go back into hiding for a bit, and then I'll come back and show you guys the journey to Cambodia in the second part of this moving to a new country video.
Prefer when I'm by myself. I don't wanna hang around y'all. Pray for good health. One day I'm gonna go ball. Fuck around and buy the whole mall. Breaking that cake. Flexing 700 in the bank. Not a superhero, I don't save. Look at my face. Look at my grades.